everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to invite you to watch a video that was made very differently to most of my other reviews. This time we are testing the largest set of acrylic markers from Arrtx with as many as 120 colors. I would like to point out that this video is not sponsored. I bought the set by myself. While looking for gifts during the holiday season, I started browsing new art supplies and quickly remembered the Arrtx brand. They have recently added lots of new products to their range, which I saw on their social media, and I wanted to try them out for myself without any pressure or sponsorship. The set of 120 acrylic markers immediately caught my attention. It's the largest palette they offer and completely different to anything I've tried before. At some point, my fiancé joined in with the gift, and it didn't stop at just one set. As well as today's acrylic markers, I also have alcohol markers and colored pencils from Arrtx, so could say that Christmas was all about creativity. More importantly, you will also see their review on my channel. In this video, however, we will focus exclusively on the acrylic markers. We will see how they perform in everyday use, what the color range looks like in practice, and whether such a large set is actually useful. The packaging is similar to that of most large Arrtx acrylic marker sets, but it also has something that immediately catches the eye. This time, the whole thing is kept in colors that I associate with candy floss. The pink, red, and yellow palette of the packaging looks light and fresh and is really visually appealing. It's the kind of set you'd want to display on your desk rather than hide away on the shelf. The packaging is made of sturdy cardboard and opens from the top to form a stand. When opened, the markers are immediately visible and easily accessible, which I really appreciate with such large sets. Everything is clear and organized, giving the impression of having been well thought out in terms of both aesthetics and functionality. I must admit, the first impression is truly amazing. Inside, I also found a thank you note, but this one looked a little different to those in previous Arrtx sets. As well as the words thank you, it also includes contact information for the brand and a list of their social media accounts. One thing that immediately caught my eye was the change in color marking. Arrtx has clearly listened to customer feedback by printing the color labels directly on the top of the markers in this set. This is a huge help, especially with such a large palette. I used to love sticking those little numbered and named color stickers on myself. There was a certain ritual to it, but let's be honest, with 120 markers, labeling each one individually would take a really long time. Here, that problem simply disappears. Just look at the top and you can immediately see which color you are reaching for. This set still includes a sheet of stickers, but this time it contains only one sheet of large stickers, which I usually stack on the side of the markers as a label. However, after some thought, I decided that the labels on the top of the markers were sufficient and that there was no need to duplicate them on the side. Instead, I decided to use the sheet differently. I kept it to create a real handmade color swatch. With such a large set, I think this is a much more practical solution that will actually be useful to me at work. Even at the packaging and preparation stage, it's clear that Arrtx is expanding its range and responding to user feedback. This is always a very good sign, especially for tools that are used daily. The natural next step in the review process was to create a manual color swatch. As I mentioned earlier, I used the stickers included in the set this time, which made the whole process much easier. Thanks to them, preparing the swatch was not only faster, but also much more organized, which is extremely important with such a large number of markers. I took my favorite sketchbook and started by sticking the stickers horizontally to create even rows. Directly below this, I made color tests. This layout enables me to see at a glance the color label and the actual shade on paper, so I don't have to flip through pages or guess which marker to use. At this stage, I must mention one thing. The range of colors is simply impressive and breathtaking. The palette is incredibly wide and very well thought out. There is no randomness or deficiency here. You will find everything you need to work on portraits, character illustrations, comics, plants, food, or landscapes. There are delicate pastels, deep saturated colors, subtle tonal gradients, and lots of intermediate colors that make a huge difference when shading and building form. The range of skin colors is particularly impressive. The range of shades is extensive and diverse, including very light, neutral, warm, and cool tones, as well as deep, dark shades. Importantly, these colors blend well together, allowing for natural gradients without any smudging or overly sharp contrasts. The hand swatch alone demonstrates that Arrtx has prioritized the versatility with this set. This palette gives you enormous creative freedom, meaning you never have to compromise on color when drawing. You simply reach for the exact shade you need. When it comes to landscapes, that's exactly right. This time I decided they would be the main theme of the illustrations created with this set. I wanted to test the Arrtx acrylic markers with a wider range of shades, and smoother gradients and landscapes seemed like the perfect subject matter for that. Before I started drawing, I browsed Pinterest for inspiration to help me create something a little different to my usual artwork. Ultimately, I opted for two illustrations. The first based on an unusual color scheme with dominant shades of blue and pink, and the second with a natural palette of greens and blues, creating a sense of calm, reminiscent of nature and fresh air. I have included two links to pictures that inspired me in the description for this video. Unfortunately, I was unable to find the original sources or artists. Both of these pictures are in a style that is similar to paint by numbers. In realistic works, areas of color are divided into smaller, often irregular, almost circular patches of diverse shapes. I decided to try something similar, combining this method of building an image with clearly visible slanted marker strokes. It was a completely new experience for me. Not only was it the first time I had worked in this way, it was also the first time I had created full-fledged scenes, and I must admit that I had a lot of concerns at first. I wasn't sure if this style would suit me, or if the end result would be too chaotic. I really wanted the whole thing to capture the essence of Studio Ghibli's scenery, the softness, calmness, and slight fairy tale quality that so many people find so charming. I am one of those people. To my surprise, however, the end result turned out really well. The illustrations complement each other well and have a consistent feel. It's one of those experiences that gives you great satisfaction and motivates you to continue experimenting. So, let's move on to the other advantages of this set. The markers are organized in the packaging. Each one has its own separate slot, making it much easier to arrange the entire set and keep it tidy. With 120 colors, this is extremely important. Nothing gets mixed up or falls out, and finding a specific shade is quick and easy. This makes the whole set look neat and inspires you to work. Another important advantage is the coverage provided. Arrtx acrylic markers provide solid coverage, working well on clean paper and surfaces that have already been drawn on. They can easily cover previous layers, sketch lines, or marks from previous work. This gives you great freedom and security when drawing. You don't have to worry about making mistakes. That's what I love about them. Equally important is the issue of non-toxicity. This is often overlooked but is extremely important, especially if you regularly draw for long periods of time or in enclosed spaces. These markers are safe to use, don't have an intense irritating odor, and enable you to work comfortably for long periods without feeling tired or uncomfortable. This is a major advantage for both beginners and those who spend long hours drawing. Another advantage is that it's waterproof once dry. This feature opens up a lot of possibilities. Once dry, the colors will not smudge when exposed to water, making the markers ideal for use on various surfaces and for mixed media techniques. You can apply multiple layers without worry, combine them with other media, or work on surfaces that aren't perfectly absorbent. The brush tip is also a huge advantage. It gives you a lot of control over the line thickness, enabling you to draw thin, precise details as well as quickly cover larger areas with color. Depending on the pressure applied, you can achieve completely different effects, making those markers a highly versatile tool. One final point worth noting is a subtle difference. Previous sets of acrylic markers of this type from Arrtx had a glossier finish. In this set, however, there is a clear shift towards a matte effect once the paint has dried. Personally, I prefer glossy finishes to matte ones, but I don't consider this to be an advantage or a disadvantage. It's simply a matter of aesthetic preference. Some people will see the matte finish as a huge plus because it creates a calmer, more illustration effect, while others will find the gloss finish more visually appealing. However, I think it's worth mentioning because it's one of those differences that aren't visible at first glance, but which become noticeable when working on viewing the finished illustrations. It's a small detail, but it can make a real difference to many people when choosing a set. In summary, I am delighted with this set, just as I have been with every other set from this brand that I have had the opportunity to test so far. This set of 120 Arrtx acrylic markers offer enormous creative possibilities and freedom of color choice, providing comfort and ease of use at every stage of the drawing process. It's one of those sets that inspires you to start a project and encourages you to plan your next one. I already have a few ideas in mind and can't wait to pick up these markers again for my next illustrations. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. See you soon. Bye.